Welcome to the Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Angelo Kelly. I have not done an intro probably in about 100 episodes at this point. So I just wanted to say thank you if you're here. I appreciate you listening. This is going to be a revamp of the podcast. 248 episodes in, I'm finally going to do a formal intro, what Better Than Yesterday means to me, how that's kind of fallen off over the last couple of years, and where we plan to go next. So, over the past 30 days, I've been in this Facebook intensive group, and then we culminated with a in-person retreat. And basically, what we've done over the past 30 days is get really clear on our goals. And one of those goals just happens to be the podcast Better Than Yesterday. That has fallen off for me big time. Probably the thing that frustrates me the most in life over the past 2 years. And when I started this thing, it was 2019. My only goal in life was to be an elite Olympic weightlifter. I was single at the time. I lived in Pennsylvania. Didn't start dating my wife until after I started the show. She was actually on episode 30 for the first time. So during this whole process, I met her, not met, but we started dating and then ended up doing some podcasts together and just kind of this whole journey. We've moved across the country multiple times. We've settled down south. There's just been so many life changes. And I started to forget why I was doing the podcast and why Better Than Yesterday specifically. This has turned into a running joke that it's just a little cliche, better than yesterday. What does that even mean? It's a little thing that people say to get you motivated on the internet. But there was a reason why I said it when I did say it on the first show that I actually recorded. And I knew that that was something that was important to me, but I don't think I really knew the extent of what it meant and how I could consistently push myself to be better than I was yesterday. And I think a big thing that I've been thinking about recently is that being better than yesterday doesn't mean comparing to yourself from 5 years ago or 3 years ago, a year ago. It's literally about comparing to what did I do yesterday and how can I improve on that just a little bit today. You're not going to make, I think when people say 1% better every day, to me, it's ridiculous because you're not going to get 1% better every day. But can you get 0.0001% better? That's what I'm looking for. So there might be days where you can improve 5, 10%, and that's awesome. But most days, you're just going to be checking the box. You're going to be doing the boring things that nobody gets to see. And that's how you make progress. So when I first started this show, there was three things that I did really well. I showed up consistently, I focused on the process, and I did not let comparison take over. So I knew that I was going to have to put a podcast out every week. That's just how it goes. Most people who have successful podcasts are doing much more than every single week. They're doing, multiple times a week, sometimes two, three, four episodes. But I knew that I needed to be consistent and I needed to show up regardless of my circumstances. I knew that to do a podcast, you were just going to have to do it for a while. So I knew focusing on long-term results was going to be my best bet. If I just focused on the first 5 or 10 episodes, how well they did on social media or how many people listened to it, that wasn't going to be a true measure of what success looks like. And I don't have a following at this point or now. So I really need to create that consistency. I need to show who I am and be trustworthy to the audience that I'm going to show up when I say I'm going to show up. And then the last thing is just I let go of comparison. I wasn't afraid to be me. I wasn't afraid to get on the mic and just talk. If I didn't have a guest, I did those solo episodes and just put them out there with really zero expectation of what was going to happen. And that turned into my current reality. I show up when it's convenient. I obsess over the numbers and I'm scared over what other people think. So I stopped doing the podcast basically altogether. But if I didn't have a guest, I didn't show up because it wasn't convenient. I had to get on the mic and talk about stuff that maybe I didn't necessarily want to talk about. Or, I just wasn't in the headspace or something would go wrong in life. So I would just stop and not put out an episode. I'd do 3 or 4 recordings at a time, and then I'd let 2, 3, 4 months pass without doing an episode. So as part of this retreat and what we did when we showed up in the in-person event, we looked at all these things. We looked at our current reality, and we heard from a speaker, and I want to give him a shout out. His name was Brad Rooks, and he's pretty prominent down in the Greenville area. But he talked about putting pressure on yourself. And I kind of had this aha moment that I have no pressure on myself in life at all. So we broke things down into four different categories: body, being, balance, and business. And if I look at those four areas, I have zero pressure on any of them. My body, I look good enough. I have some abs. Um, I'm a relatively competitive weightlifter. There's not many people besides my coach and wife who are really pushing me to be better or holding me accountable. Um, I think about myself. I don't put pressure on myself to get outside of my comfort zone. So what I think about myself is my being, and I don't have pressure on, I need to do the podcast. I need to do something for me that helps me take care of me. And then for balance, that's what your relationships look like. So Dana loves me. I am in an okay spot with relationships, friends, family, things like that, but I'm not forced to do anything really better. And then for business, I make enough money to get by, but not necessarily enough to get ahead. And I boiled it down into one statement that my current reality has caused, and it's I've been letting my circumstances determine my actions instead of letting my actions determine my circumstances. So I will repeat that again. I've been letting my circumstances determine my actions instead of letting my actions determine my circumstances. So when you show up when it's convenient, when you don't do the things that you said you were going to do, you don't really trust yourself. And that's the point where I've gotten to the podcast, where I don't believe myself when I say I have a podcast and it's called Better Than Yesterday, because I'm not doing the things on a daily, weekly, monthly, 90-day basis to prove to myself that this is something that I really take seriously. So we spent all this time journaling about our goals and coming up with consistent habits and actions that we need to take. And in the spirit of putting pressure on myself, I am going to give you exactly what my 90-day goals are for those four areas: body, being, balance, and business. For my body, and I'm going to say these as I will statements because I want these to be all things that are achievable. They're not necessarily things that are crazy outside of my comfort zone right now, but this is my first time doing this. So for my body, I will total 237 kilos at American Open Finals in December. So that's a pretty big stretch goal for me, just where my current reality is. I am going to compete as a 65 kilo weightlifter at that meet. I have not ever weighed 65 when I've competed, or the 65.00 that you need to be. So that'll be my lightest weight class ever. My last total was 228. That was at Garage Strength a month back, and I think I was 66.4 when I weighed in. So I have to lose about 2 kilos. Right now, I'm about 67. So I need to lose weight and I need to improve my total by 9 kilos. So that's a pretty big stretch goal that I'm going to have to get my training in. I'm going to have to do my mobility. I'm going to have to show up when I don't feel like showing up and be consistent with that. For my being, how I feel about myself, I am going to commit to 12 solo podcast episodes over the next 90 days. And what that looks like is I have to show up solo. I'm not going to rely on guests. I'm not going to rely on other people for how the podcast turns out. This is on me. This is something that I need to do for me to feel good, to feel a sense of purpose. So what that looks like is I'm going to have to be prepared. I can't just come on here and talk about nothing for 15, 20 minutes. Nobody's going to really want to hear that. But at the same time, I need to expand my current knowledge, my current just get outside of my comfort zone, because I don't like doing these solo podcasts much, but it's something that I need to do for me. For my balance, my relationship, I am going to plan and take Dana on 6 dates over the next 90 days. So a lot of times we get caught up in we just sit on the couch and we end up watching the UFC, or now it's football season, which is great. We both love the Eagles. Go Birds. But at the same time, I want our relationship to be great. I don't want our relationship to just be good enough. So planning those 6 dates, well, I'll have to make sure that, hey, I know exactly where we're going and what we're doing. And that requires some work on the back end. It's not saying, hey, do you want to go out to eat on Saturday when it's already 4 o'clock and we're both starving, and then we end up eating something that we don't necessarily want to eat, or we just get Chipotle and hang in. That's not what I want our relationship to be. I want that to be intentional. I want that to be something where we go out on Saturday and we have a really good time, and I need to plan that. And the last one for business, we've been reading this book called Money for Couples. It's by the author Ramit Sethi, and he wrote I Will Teach You to Be Rich. But we have not had joint accounts up until now. So our finances have been separate. We've been keeping this running tally on the fridge with how much we spend and just split everything 50-50. But what we're doing is getting joint accounts, automating all our IRA contributions, our savings goals, making sure we're saving up for another down payment, which is something that we need to be cognizant of and we need to be intentional. So we have some savings goals, and those are my 90-day goals, my 90-day goals that I will hit. So all of them are going to be challenging. It's going to require daily, consistent effort. But the retreat, it's really hard for me to talk about for people who didn't go through it. But there's a different motivation and a different fire to get things done. And I always used to say, even there's the coach for Iowa wrestling, Tom Brands. He has this one video, and a journalist is asking him, "What's your goal for today for practice?" He's a wrestling coach there, and they're like, "Oh, consistently one of the best programs in the country." But he says, "Getting better." And they ask again, like, "What's the plan? How are you going to get better?" And he says, "Getting better." And that's it. And I thought, that's a great thing for me to say. I want to get better all the time. But that's not how things work. You can't just say, I want to get better. You have to have a plan for getting better. So that's where I'm at. I am, and I've said it before, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not here to do the podcast to necessarily motivate you, but I hope that other people are able to see that you have to show up when you say you're going to show up. You have to be consistent. Sometimes it requires you putting yourself out there. I think for me, that's really going to be huge in actually saying, these are my 90-day goals, and I hope people are able to hold me accountable. And the same thing goes for you. Set those 90-day goals, set those outcomes that you want to achieve, and in 90 days, you can actually take a look and say, did I do the things that were required? If I didn't, how do I recalibrate? How do I regroup and go back to it for the next 90 days and set even bigger stretch goals if you do hit them? So that is what I got for you guys this week. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm also going to be dropping some interviews too, probably not as often. The solo pods are going to be Fridays. So if you have any topics you want me to cover, I'm more than happy to do that. But these are typically just going to be for me getting on here. I'm going to research some stuff that I'm interested in. Hopefully you have some interest in it as well. But yeah, that's where we're going. The podcast it's not stopping. We're not ending. I feel like 248 episodes is where I'm really hitting my stride. It took a long fucking time to get here, and I am prepared to keep pushing to the next level. So hope you guys have an awesome weekend, and I will see you on next Friday.